Alright, before I start anything, I just want to say I did get a pop filter for my mic. However, as you can see here, this is not the right size. Something I did not know, sadly, at the time of purchase, and I'm gonna have to get a new one eventually. Alright, so this shouldn't be a long video. I want to make this as short as possible. And I just honestly just wanted to make a video. I really like being on camera and talking to you guys. It's really fun, and I want to keep doing it. So, what do I talk about today? Let's talk about hot takes. Yeah, so if you've ever been on Twitter, which I do not recommend, there's a lot of hot takes, and some takes are so nuclear that people like them, and they start reiterating these takes, and eventually these takes become cold and become something that nobody even disagrees with anymore. This one take, though, it's very stupid, and it started out as a joke, and I agree it was funny in the beginning, but then eventually it got to a point where people start sharing it mindlessly, and it doesn't make any sense anymore, and I feel like I want to talk about it, and that is Batman is a bad superhero because he doesn't spend his money, helping Gotham City. And instead he beats up poor people. Yeah, so Batman is a bad superhero because he's rich. Because apparently people on Twitter got so tired of making fun of Elon Musk and Bezos that they started going after fictional billionaires. No, but for real though, the original take was that, Batman, Bruce Wayne, he's a billionaire and he lives in Gotham City, which is the most crime-dense city in the entire DC universe. Yeah, he doesn't do anything to help it. And instead, he spends his time dressing up as a bat, and he just beats up poor people. That's the main take, is that Bruce Wayne doesn't truly help Gotham City. And it goes even further, because some people start talking about how any charity work that Bruce Wayne does is actually deductibles for his taxes. It's really mind-boggling how far the take goes. That, he's trying to make Bruce look as bad as possible. And I get it. It's funny, right? We all love cracking and shitting on billionaires. It's really fun. It's really fun, and it's ethically correct. However, for Batman's case, I feel like people are generally misunderstanding Batman, right? Or a more accurate take here is that I think people, Twitter and on Reddit as well, they misunderstand Gotham City. And the reason I bring up Gotham is because you cannot judge Batman in a vacuum. Unlike Spider-Man, unlike every other superhero, which you can easily just take him for who he is and just analyze him, talk about him, discuss his morality, his morals, everything. You cannot do that with Batman. That's because Batman is always tied with Gotham. Without Gotham City, there's no Batman. And I feel like a lot of people are missing that point. Because you cannot just always judge Batman as a billionaire that isn't spending his money when you're not aware of just how messed up Gotham City is. Because here's a hot take of my own. If Bruce Wayne's parents died in Metropolis or any other city that is not Gotham City, Bruce Wayne would not be Batman. And the reason I say that is because look at Metropolis, right? Metropolis is a better version of Gotham. There's no crime in it. And, you have a better superhero, right? You have Superman. But, there's no crime in it as much, at least as the level of Gotham City. And there's so much programs in Metropolis, that makes it just a better place to live in. So why is it that one city works and the other city doesn't? It's not because Lex Luthor puts more money than Bruce Wayne. That's not true. The reason is Metropolis is just another city. It's just a city. And if crime happens in Metropolis, it's just crime like every other city, right? Crime happens everywhere, apparently. And when someone like Bruce Wayne's parents walk in an alley and they get shot, that's just bad luck, really, if you think about it. It's just bad luck. And if Bruce was born in Metropolis, if he was raised in Metropolis, and his parents died in Metropolis, he would just basically say, my parents died because, they were at a bad time, at a bad place, and things just did not work out that night. However, in Gotham City, Bruce Wayne understands that it's more than that. He understands that his parents died not because it was just a bad timing, not because it was the wrong place and the wrong time. It's because the city itself reinforces violence to a level that anyone walking with his parents at night could die. That's the level of messed up Gotham City is. And Bruce Wayne understands that. He understands that and he tries to work on that. Hence why he becomes Batman. Because it doesn't matter how much money you put into a city that is fundamentally fucked. You just can't help it, right? It doesn't matter how much money you put in it. it's not gonna pan out the way you want it to be. And Scott Snyder did a great take about it in the story Batman Court of Owls, which is a great story if you guys haven't read it yet. But in that story, basically he explains how there's actually a secret society within Gotham that purposely promotes violence and promotes crime, and which explains why like a lot of the things Batman would do and Bruce Wayne would do charity wise just does not pan out completely as successful to the city, right? Bruce Wayne did a lot of charity. He puts his money a lot in Gotham. He tries to rehabilitate. He tries to fix the criminals by offering them jobs and stuff. But there's so much he can do with his money, and that's because there's always a party at play in Gotham that's making things worse, right? Whether it's corrupt police, whether it's the mafia, whether it's the mob, whether it's anything, there's always a reason Gotham is just fundamentally not working. I think at a certain comic book, they explain how Arkham Asylum is literally built on like one of the gates of hell. Like, you can't escape that. You can't reform that with money, right? And I think that's very important. I don't think people understand just how bad Gotham is, right? We always hear that take about how without Batman, his rogue gallery wouldn't exist, right? He's the one who birthed Joker and Penguin and Two-Face, and Riddler. But I think that's a really bad take. I think, like I said before, without Gotham, Batman would not exist. And just like Batman, without Gotham, none of his rogue gallery would exist either. There is no Penguin in Metropolis. There's no Two-Face in Central City. There's no Joker in Star City fighting against Green Arrow. But they're all in Gotham City, and that's because Gotham is just a breeding ground for hatred and violence and crime, that things just happen to it that way. And knowing that this city is so messed up to that level, and understanding that Batman is truly needed to fight these type of crimes, you begin to understand why Bruce doesn't just spend his money and fix the city, right? Because if you look back at Batman Year One or the early Batman stories, he became Batman mainly to fight the mob, right? All these big families that are in control of Gotham and are actively making it a worse place. And that's where it all started. He generally thinks that the city is messed up from the core, and he tries to fix it by tackling those who are in control of these crimes. And when you finally understand that Gotham is just not a normal city, you realize that Batman isn't a normal superhero either. You cannot compare Batman to every other superhero in the same sense that we usually do, just because he is so tied with his own city that you have to bring up Gotham always in the conversation, right? Batman is special, and Batman only belongs in Gotham. Every other story where there's Batman is in another city or another universe, it just doesn't hit the same. And ultimately, I think this misunderstanding is because of just how Gotham City has been portrayed in the media for so long, right? I mean, for the average person who does not read comics, their only view of Gotham is just the movies that they watch. And let's look at the main Batman story in the past decade, right? Which is the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. In that story, there's no difference between Gotham in that story and Metropolis in the comics and New York City. There's nothing. There's no difference at all. And that's because Nolan doesn't really do a good job at all really diving at the heart of Gotham City. And as a result, you just get this lifeless city that Batman is in. One of my criticisms for the Nolan trilogy is that he missed the vibe of Batman, right? He got the character right, but he missed the vibe. And that's what happens, right? We watched that movie. We watched Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and Rises, and you're always thinking, why can't Bruce just spend his money if he could just buy a tank? Surprisingly, you know what movie doesn't echo that? Batman and Robin, or just the entire old Batman movies by Tim Burton, and then eventually George Schumacher. I'm sorry, I can't say his name. But in those movies, Gotham was very much animated, right? It was very weird. It was very bizarre. Everybody got their own style. It looked like a city that is forever, trapped in that 1940s, 30s aesthetic. And in that city, in these movies, you truly understand just how crime-ridden these cities are, right? It's how gothic it is, and just you understand how a criminal in the mob could become the Joker without Batman, right? I mean, in that story, technically, Joker's what made Batman, not the other way around. And that's why I'm excited about the new Batman movie. I feel like from what we've seen so far, Gotham looks really, unique. It doesn't look like New York City, and that's the most important thing to me. I don't want Batman to be in New York City, because Batman in New York City is just Spider-Man. There's nothing differentiating between him and any other superhero. And in that case, if he's in New York City, Bruce Wayne could easily solve every problem in New York City, like homelessness and crime and everything, by his money. But when you look at Gotham City, you realize Bruce Wayne cannot fix that with money. He has to be Batman, because that's the only way to fix it. The only way to fix a messed up city is to be messed up as itself. Basically, in the end, I feel like this take has gone way too far. I feel like people don't necessarily... I feel like the reason it went this far is because people just do not understand Batman, and they do not understand Gotham City. And I hope this somehow clarified some of this confusion. The other response to this take would just be like, if Batman could solve everything with money, it would be a boring ass story. Some people have made that joke already, and I agree with it, including Chip Zdarsky, which is one of my favorite comic book writers, who's also writing the new Batman story starring in June. So I'm excited about that. So in the end, let me know what you guys think about Batman being rich and not spending his money in Gotham City, and just let me know what you guys think about Gotham City in general. I feel like it's a very special place in comics that isn't talked about as much. And if you guys want to see me talk about Spider-Man, I'll link that video here. Also, I made a video about where I talked about books I read, and follow me on Twitter. I make a lot of hot takes there. I'll see you guys later. Bye.